Well, hello everybody and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again. I've headed out this afternoon because it's late September and it's still fairly warm and fairly sunny and dry. There's a little bit of a breeze knocking around, and the last couple of days we've had a bit more of a breeze and some heavy rain as well. So today was the best day for me to come out. Before I tell you about my plans for today, let me first of all draw your attention to my new 2024 calendar. It's out now, available to purchase for £15, and I've printed an A4 calendar, and it's obviously printed single-sided print, so you've got the image at the top half of the page and a small month calendar at the bottom of the page, and then you've got 12 pages. Obviously there's one for every month, 12 separate images. And yeah, at the end of 2024, because it's single-sided printing, you can always cut off the month at the end of the year and keep the images yourself. If you are interested in purchasing one of my calendars, then please let me know in the comments box below this video. If you could just leave me your email address and let me know that you want to purchase a calendar, then I can get back in touch with you via email and we can make arrangements via email for payment. At the moment it's on pre-order, so I do need you to pay up front so that I can afford to pay for a bulk printing order, and that means that at least I've got the calendars to start dishing out to everybody. At the moment I'm offering free postage to anywhere in the world, so obviously it's well worth it. £15, you get an A3 calendar, 12 images to keep for eternity if you wanted to. But also you get free shipping, so it shouldn't cost you more than £15, or it won't cost you more than £15. Obviously I can't keep that offer open forever. In a few weeks time I'm going to start charging for delivery, so it's best to try and get one fairly quickly if you're really interested. I've already sold a few and I'm doing a bulk order this time next week. There is a 2-week waiting list for processing at the moment, so it'll be about 3 weeks before you receive any calendars in the post, but obviously they're on their way if you're interested in purchasing one. Like I say, leave your email address in the comments box below and I can get back in touch with you and we can make the arrangements then. So today I do have a plan for what I want to do on this little walk. You can see behind me a path that leads off down a little bit further into the park, that heads towards Longmoor Pool, and from Longmoor Pool I want to do a quick skirt around the pool and then head in a westerly direction over to Western Coppice at the western edge of the park, and then from there I'm going to walk through Western Coppice, and at the end of there I'll cut back across to the Jamboree Stone in the middle of the park, and then from there I'm going to head home back to Boldmere. So I'll head back towards the Boldmere Gate from the Jamboree Stone, but I may take a slight detour and go through the Deer Park and head towards Keeper's Pool before I head back towards Boldmere Gate of the park. So I hope you enjoy this vlog. I'm going to move on and see if I can find my first composition, and by the way, I think I've found it already. Just as you walk down this path behind me, there's a beautiful tree at the end of the path. Now I don't know if I'll be able to get a decent image with that. It might be a portrait shot, it might be a landscape shot, and I think there'll be a portrait from this side of the path, and then from the other side of the tree there may be a landscape image. So I hope you like these images. So I hope you enjoyed those two images. One, a landscape image of that tree from the bottom of the path looking up the hill, and the path kind of split a little bit going from the tree, just below the tree, down towards where I was standing to take the shot, which made it quite interesting as well. Part of that path then runs from the left hand side bottom corner of the image up towards the tree itself, and I thought that was really quite interesting. I knew that would work because I've taken a shot there before, slightly different conditions though, so I knew it was going to work anyway as a composition. But the other one of course was a portrait orientation from the top of the path, which was surrounded by gorse land and heather and a few trees that were all overgrown, and the path itself was very tight, and it was quite a tight crop, and I'd got quite a lot of light coming from behind the tree, so it made it very difficult to work out what my exposure was in that particular instance. So I've bracketed that one shot, and the landscape shot that you've seen is just one straight shot on its own. Now I've come to this little spot here in the woodland about 100 yards away from the path that I was just on, and I found these trees behind me which are quite interesting, and this one tree here has got a branch that comes out the top of it and kind of curls around the top of the frame and creates an interesting framework for the image, with the shadows on the floor as well just behind me from that tree, creating another frame at the bottom of the frame of the image, which draws your eye right into the image and creates almost a vignetting effect. But then also, while I'm standing here, as I turn around, you'll notice this tree behind me just here, and then the path runs off a little way up there, and there's another tree there, and then another tree a little further back from that. And what I want to try and do now is take a shot of this tree here also, with the path leading away from it towards those trees behind it, because I think that's very interesting, and the light coming through here is very interesting anyway. So I'm going to try and make those couple of shots for you now. I hope you like these as well. So I've just entered Westwood Coppice. I think earlier I called it Western Coppice. So if you're looking for Western Coppice, that probably doesn't exist. But I'm in Westwood Coppice now. So I know there are several compositions here. And in fact, I've just taken a handheld composition of somebody's den that they've built up using twigs and made almost like a teepee kind of effect with it. It's quite interesting. There's quite a lot of them in the woodland whenever you're walking around. I didn't think I was going to see one today though. In the meantime, before I move on from here and get a few compositions here, on the way here I was stopped by a guy who walked past me pushing his pushchair with his baby in the pushchair, and he said to me, "I follow you on Instagram, mate. I love your stuff." I've got to be honest, that's the first time that's happened to me, where somebody who I'm actually meeting out and about has told me they're following me on Instagram. So that was quite an interesting one, and nice to hear that he's supporting me. And the good news is that I already follow him as well, so there's no problems there either. But yeah, I'm going to move on and have a quick wander around Westwood Coppice, see if I can get a few shots here. I know there will be some, because it's a perfect woodland for it, but it's just a case of finding the perfect shot each time. And then I'm going to head off to the Jamboree Stone. Okay, so I've just found my first interesting composition here in Westwood Coppice. There are 3 trees behind me. I think it's this one, and this one here. And just on the centre one of those trees, there's some very bright green foliage just about 15 feet up the tree, which is making for a very interesting, very contrasty kind of image. I've got the darkness of the tree trunks themselves, plus the brightness of that beautiful green foliage. And as the sun is streaming through from the top of the image, through the tree canopy, it's just bouncing off those leaves there and giving a really interesting contrast. The only problem I've got is I've got to bracket the exposures, because there is quite a lot of light coming from the top of the canopy, which is making it very difficult in terms of dynamic range. So by bracketing the images, I can make sure I even everything up. I'll probably also crop out some of the top of that image and just give you a much smaller crop of the 3 trees with that green foliage near the top of the image itself. So I'm going to move on and get the next one now. Hope you like that one. Two of the most difficult issues within woodland photography, I found anyway, are dealing with contrasting colours. Well, quite honestly, contrasting colours tend to even themselves out anyway within a woodland. Whatever time of year you shoot, whatever the colours are that contrast with one another, they tend to also complement each other, so you'll get dark browns and greens complementing each other, and in the autumn then you'll get much darker black bark of trees, but you'll also get the wetness of that bark, which is creating an even darker effect. but then you get lovely golden colours of the leaves that have fallen onto the ground. And that's really something quite interesting. So you're always looking out for those contrasting colours and how to deal with them, and try to ensure that your composition takes in colours which do work well together anyway. That's fairly easy to do. But the other issue is light, and especially at this time of year, you'll always get light dappling through the trees, whatever time of year it is. But here in the early autumn, what we find is the woodland tends to still be very dark because it still has quite a large tree canopy. But also you get any light that does come through the trees is really, really harsh light, because the sun is much lower on the horizon now than it was 3 or 4 months ago back in the summer. And what that means is it just changes the way the light appears on everything that you're photographing. So you end up with much harsher, much more contrasty, stronger light on everything that you're photographing, and that can make it very difficult in terms of working out what your exposure should be. But in general, if I'm having that problem, I tend to bracket the exposures and make sure I've got at least one really decent image out of 3 or 4 potentially bracketed exposures. I'm going to move on because I know there's a composition a little way along here now. So these trees behind me are quite perfect. They stand very tall and create this really interesting effect with the lines through the middle of the image. But also I've got that beautiful pathway that leads over there, and just below all those trees the pathway seems to open up quite a bit, and you've got quite a lot of light coming through onto the path itself, and that's giving a really interesting colour on the path that works well with these trees behind it. Now, I was thinking I may need to get a little bit closer, but actually looking at the image on the back of the camera, I'm quite pleased with it. I've had to shoot with the tripod quite down low to the ground to make sure I get make the most out of those trees, kind of looking up towards them, so that they look much more interesting, much more imposing in the frame. And that's a really interesting shot. I'm going to carry on now and see if I can make my way over to the Jamboree Stone. I'm still probably going to find a couple of images along the way, but I think the last couple of images that I've taken here are probably going to be the best I can get while I'm here. But then I'll head over to the Jamboree Stone and see what happens there. So this is a really interesting one. That tree behind me, and then there's a path that runs along behind it and carries on into the woodland behind. But also just at the edge of the path, just behind the tree, you can see a little bit of a tree stump where obviously a tree has been cut down at some point to make way for the path. It's quite an interesting one because you've got first of all this tree here, then the tree stump and the path that leads you into that woodland. I really quite like it, so I'm going to stop here and take a shot of this, but also the path is opening up a little bit here at the front of the image, so that's also quite interesting because that draws you into the tree itself and then up towards the path behind it. So obviously I'm going to stop here and take this shot. I am only about 100 yards away now from the end of Westwood Coppice, and then I'll be heading out to try and find a path up towards the Jamboree Stone. So I'll capture this shot. I hope you like it. So that last image was an exposure bracket because I felt it was the best option under the circumstances. The dynamic range at the top of the image was really, really playing havoc with the exposure. So I felt like bracketing the exposures was the best option. I could of course have used a graduated neutral density filter and just put that at the top of the image to darken down some of that exposure at the top. But the chances are I'll probably just crop out some of that top of that image anyway, because the image was really that main tree, the path, and that little tree stump running up the path. So essentially I can crop the top out and remove some of the worst of that exposure problem. But like I say, an exposure bracket would also help, and that's what I've done. I'm going to carry on now to the Jamboree Stone, which is just up this path and then along to the east. That shouldn't take me too long, and on the way I'll probably find another couple of shots there as well. That there is my favourite tree of the day so far, so obviously I'm going to stop here and take a photo of it. Beautiful, beautiful silver birch tree standing at the edge of this path with the sunlight from over in the west hitting the side of the tree, which is really, really brightening everything up and making it look like a beautiful image. So I'm going to take this shot now. You have to excuse me, I've got the sun in my eyes. I'm going to take this shot now. But obviously I don't want to stop here too long, because right at this very moment the midge bastards are hanging around as well, and they keep biting me like you wouldn't believe. So that's the last shot of my day, my vlog today, folks. I'm sick of the midges now, so I'm going home. The Jamboree Stone that I mentioned I'm heading towards is just about 150 yards up this path here, not far behind me. So when I get there I'll turn off home. Apologies for the noise of that plane just going overhead a couple of seconds ago. And also apologies for my phone ringing earlier on in the vlog. It was a Sunderland number. I don't know anybody in Sunderland, so I don't know who that was. If it's important, they'll ring me back. But if you've enjoyed today's vlog, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and also remember to subscribe to the channel. And while you're there, if you don't mind, please consider purchasing one of my 2024 calendars, which are available now. Just like I said earlier, put your name and your email address in the comments box below and let me know that you want a calendar, and I'll get back in touch with you, and then we can arrange to get it paid for and get it sent to you. Thanks once again for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the vlog. I look forward to seeing you again in another vlog very soon. Bye for now.